Hi, welcome back. I first want to congratulate you for finishing the first two sections of this course. I am totally cognizant of the fact that the course is very condensed, especially section one itself, because it's necessary for you to have at least the basis and the basic structure for you to be able to become a developer. Okay, section two was mainly more about calligraphy, so I hope you enjoyed the framework itself. There are lots of other powerful features in calligraphy that we cannot cover as part of this course. We are hoping to have some more advanced course down the road. Now, the third section, or the third part of this course, is really to look at some at least a glimpse at these features that calligraphy offers you out of the box, and try to see them live in action. We are going to put our mini portfolio application aside for the time being. We will still use the same calligraphy code that we used for this application, but we are going to see how we could implement some of the features of calligraphy. So let's go to today's lecture. And today's lecture is going to be mainly, which is the first lecture of this part, is we're going to show you one of the features that calligraphy has and that calligraphy offers out of the box that doesn't require a lot of programming on your end. And it's going to revolve around what we call structured data, or more particularly, you might have heard the word RichCards when we talk about Google applications and stuff. So what I want to probably explain to you, or show you, or illustrate to you in the session today is how this can be done in calligraphy in a very seamless way, and it's all coming out of the box with what the framework offers. So let's go ahead and check that lecture. You can follow the reference or follow the video, whichever way you want. The reference is very well explained, and it takes you step by step into what needs to be done. I will also be referring to get some code samples from the reference itself, and then we'll apply it in the code to show you what the resulting impact is on the UI. Now, when we talk about structured data, or we talk about social rich cards, the best way probably to explain to you what this is about is really to show you how it would look like live in action. Now, when we are going to implement the code ourselves, since we are working on a local environment and we are not necessarily in a space that has a public accessible IP, such as a website that is public and so on, then it's not going to be easy to show you the result of the code itself. So the way I'm going to handle this session is to go a little bit the other way around. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you at least what the outcome is going to be, and then I will show you how we could implement it in our code. Unfortunately, I will not be able to show you because it's a local environment how our code is going to behave, unless we spend a significant amount of time trying to upload to a production server and so on, which is not really the purpose of this course. So probably the best way to talk about structured data and social rich cards is really to show you how a social rich card and what a rich card is. Okay, and the best way to show you this, I'm going to go directly to the calligraphy website, which today is nothing more but a landing page that it takes you to the GitHub to have access to the code. Now, the part that we're concerned with mainly is really these buttons at the bottom. Okay, what these buttons are going to do, they're going to somehow share the link with either any social network such as Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Instagram. In this case, we only have 4, but it could be extended to other social networks as well. And the way this sharing is going to happen is simply by sharing the URL. Okay, And the resulting or what results from the sharing is what we call a rich card, because it's going to try and go grab some information from the website, and it's going to display them in a card format that can show a picture, can show a description, and things like that. Now, before I show you the social buttons themselves, I am going to copy the URL just to show you that just the URL itself is meaningful, because there is what we call structured data behind it that some applications are able to read and are able to fetch and turn it into something that is richer from a visual perspective. Thus the name RichCards. So I'm going to open Slack. If you are not familiar with Slack, Slack is one of those messenger services that allows collaboration among teams in a work environment. Okay, and Calligraphy happens to have a workspace on Slack. So I just copied the URL, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that URL, paste that URL directly in a messenger service. Now I'm choosing Slack, but this could also work with WhatsApp. It could work with the Facebook Messenger. It could work with other messaging platforms such as the Google messaging. So all of this can still work in any messaging environment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste the calligraphy.com website and hit enter. And I'm going to show you how, in this case, Slack is interpreting the structured data that is behind. And look what it's doing. It is getting you a picture directly taken from the structured data that is defined in the website, along with some description. And if there is a price, in this particular case there is none, it would show it to you. Okay, now if you copy that URL and you try it yourself and put it in your WhatsApp Messenger, for instance, by sending a message to yourself, or by doing it directly on the sharing field that is on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Pinterest or on Twitter, you are gonna get something similar to this, and that is exactly what a rich card is. And the way a rich card works is it would only work if the application itself has what we call structured metadata behind that is giving all this information. So what I'm going to show you today is really how Calligraphy does it for you in a beautiful way. All right, so we saw an example in Slack. Just to complete at least the illustration of all this, I'm going to show you how Facebook would react to something like that. I'm going to use my username and password in this case, provided I still remember my password for Facebook, which it seems like I totally don't. Let me try this. All right, it worked from the first time. All right, so here we go. This is how it would be displayed on Facebook, for instance. Let me open another one. Let me show you LinkedIn. Okay, I need to log in as well. Let's also hope that I remember my my password for that. And here we go. This is how LinkedIn But the gist of what I want to show you with the rich cards and how I want to illustrate them to you. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go to the code and try and figure out what we need to do in our mini portfolio application in order to get something like that. But like I mentioned before, we are not going to be able to test it. So really the way it works is in your website there needs to be something called structured data, which is a set of metadata that is added to your header. So if I go back to layouts, layout blocks mainly, just like you have here meta name, a viewport, and some other stuff. There is another set of metadata, which by the way you could see it's been included in here, that would help you define that structured data by giving a title, by giving a description, by giving a price if it's a product, and so on and so forth. So there is a method that comes out of the box with Calligraphy under the core helpers that would allow you to change the metadata of your application. And this can be done either as a whole for the entire application, or for instance, if your application can allow submitting projects like the one we have, then for each and every project page, you might want to have a different metadata associated with, let's say, each and every project. So in that case, there are two ways of doing it. If it's something that is common across the board, then the where we need or the file where we need to call the metadata can be done in a global way in some configuration file, such as the one, I apologize, such as the one that is under application configuration, and then there is a config.php. If you remember well, in that space we could run any method that we need. So maybe in that case this is a great opportunity if it's a global definition for the page to put it in here. However, if it's more you want to do it more on a post by post basis or project by project basis in our case, then probably the best way is to go to the controller of the page. That so in our case we want to go to project controller, and every time we're reading a project, because that would be the page for our project, what we want to send down to the view, which we haven't done yet, would be to send down the metadata or the result of the metadata function. So now let me dig deeper a little bit and let me show you how to do it from a config.php aspect of things. And it would be exactly the same thing if you want to do it in the controller. So let's go to the lecture, and really all you need to do is copy that function that is giving you all the attributes that you need to fill if they are relevant. If they're not relevant, you just leave them blank. And then I'm going to paste it here. Okay, and with this is a function. The function is saying call the metadata function and give it the following values. So you give a name to your site. In our case, we called it showcase. So we're going to put showcase in here. Okay. Google site verification is if you want to link, and we'll see it in the next lecture, but if you want to put your website out there so that Google search recognizes it in its search engine, then you need to provide a code that is given to you by Google. Okay, for the time being we're going to just leave it empty because it doesn't apply to us just yet. And then your site URL, so this would be when you put it on a production server, this would be your site URL. In our particular case, we still don't have anything, but let's pretend that it's called showcase.com just for the purpose of it, okay? Even though this URL doesn't exist at all. And then we're gonna add a title. So the title is different from the site name. The title is really what's gonna appear in the tabs up there, okay? Or within the page if you're using it, or on the card itself. All right. Now in this case, this is only gonna change the card itself, but I just wanted to tell you how this would impact this would impact the card. So it's really going to be that first headline of the card. So let's call it my portfolio or something like that. Okay. You can invent any stuff right now. And then the description, and this is a description of my website. Creator, you can put your name in here. And the image, that big image that we see that comes, with Calligraphy, we tried it. Let's go back to Slack. So that image, you would define its URL, and it needs to be a public URL. Okay, so it needs something that is already uploaded in your server. In other words, something that is in the public folder in here. Whether you put it under images or under uploads or any other place, that is fine for as long as it's in the public folder. And you can put the path to it in here, and it should be an absolute path, meaning you need to have the HTTP, okay, a public path. Then if it's a project, or if it's a product and it has a price, then you could determine the price for it, the currency, the shipping cost, and if whether or not it's available in stock. Okay, if none of these apply, you would leave them empty. So now once you do this, let me save it, and I want to save it for a purpose, even though we're not going to be able to test it, but I want to show you how it's going to change on your page. So now what we're going to do is we applied it in a global way. All right, and we need a way to tell the controller now to activate the metadata. So we really need to send the metadata to our application, or to our view more precisely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send it to index, which is the page that has all the projects, and all you need to do really is do the following. You're going to say metadata like that, and what I'm going to send is metadata, and then you do metadata like that. Okay, when you call metadata and you don't give it arguments, it is really going to return what the metadata variable in the session has. And what does the metadata variable in the session have? It has everything that we did in here, that we defined in here. What this is going to do, it's going to set a variable in the session that is called metadata, and then it's going to give it these values. All right, so let's go ahead and check our localhost code, showcase. Sorry, I might have made a mistake. Let's see where that mistake is. Project controller line 16, I might have forgotten either a parentheses or something like that. Yes, it is a parentheses. Okay, so let's go back, run it. Of course, our UI did not change at all so far, but I want you to go take a look at the page source by right-clicking on an empty spot. And what we're going to look for, we're going to look for metadata over here, okay? A meta, like that. And look how it immediately included all that information for us over here. You notice description. This is a description of my website. What else did we put? This is the image. Let's look at the title because we did change the title. Where is it? Name, showcase. So these are exactly the values that we sent to our metadata. And now, only by having these sets of metadata tags along with the right information is automatically going to be read by the different messengers or any application that fetches that data from the website, and it's going to display them to the user in the way you would want. And that's really about it. This is exactly how this has been generated. How beautiful is that? Great. Now that's one dimension for it. The other dimension is it would be cool if we can have these buttons out here, okay? Just out of the box. We don't want to do anything. We just need to provide them out of the box. And then there are two layers to this. So here's how to set them up, and Caligraphy does it in a beautiful way again. All you need to do, believe it or not, is to add social and set it to true. This will automatically add the buttons for you. Let's not on this one, sorry, but rather on this one. Look at that. It's already there now. It needs some, because the color is white and stuff. This we can play around, but otherwise this is exactly what we wanted. Okay, so now you can't try it, unfortunately, because look, even if I do this, probably it's not going to recognize any of that information. It's actually taking. There seems to be a showcase.com and it's taking the information from there. So I don't want you to worry about it, but be sure that when you put it on a production server, it's going to do the right thing for you. And the other thing that you need to do specifically for Facebook and Instagram, you do need to provide, and now we're going to go to the .env, you need to provide a Facebook app ID, otherwise the sharing will not work. And in order for you to get a Facebook app ID, you will need to create a Facebook app, otherwise Facebook never allows you to share from the page immediately. Okay, you see it says invalid app ID, and in fact it's not a valid app ID. So if you don't want to customize this, you don't necessarily want to show Facebook and stuff like that, that is easy. If you go to the view, as soon as I find it, auto views, if you go to modules, there is something called social. Over here you can do any modifications that you want. One of the modifications that we're going to make right now is we're not going to make it color 0. We're going to leave it transparent, and hopefully this is going to make it the way we want. All right, and this is it. This is exactly what you need. You need to have the structured data entered correctly, and if you want social buttons to be on your page, then you would include them as part of the view. And since you're doing it on a view by view basis, then in each and every controller that you want, you can change the metadata to be something completely different, for as long as it's a metadata about your URL and your website. With this, we kind of explained a little bit almost everything that we wanted to talk about in this session. You're gonna see part 3 is very small because it's all about those additional features that we could do. But believe me, they are magical. Otherwise, you're gonna be creating that code manually, and Caligraphy does it in a beautiful way for you. For that, I hope you enjoyed the session today, and I wish you a fantastic day. See you next time.